Hi everyone, and thanks for subscribing to my channel. Please press subscribe now so you'll be notified when my new videos come up. And thanks again to Fiona O'Donnell as well, who has supported my work through buying me a coffee as well. You can add in the links to the comments as well if you'd like to support as well. So I'm very grateful. Today I want to speak about house prices in Ireland, absolutely out of control. The house behind me here in Harold's Cross, these are cottages that were built back in the 19th century for workers in the mills. Just up the road from here, there's a number of mills, Greenmount mills, and many more mills in this area that were built for these workers. Now, these houses are now up on the market for €500,000 currently. That house, a two-bed house here in Harold's Cross, absolutely extortionate. Working class can't afford to live in areas anymore and being forced away from their communities and cities. And specifically because of the extortionate house prices, all facilitated through successive government policies. Now, this is important to highlight because the CSO have said that house prices are now nearly 20% above the pre-crash levels. 20% above the pre-crash levels. Absolutely just insane house prices in Ireland. Completely unaffordable, and it's forced a generation of young people into emigration because of the extortionate house costs. The ERSI said last year, the Economic Social Research Institute said house prices were overvalued by over 10%. Now that's just a conservative estimate. We all know it's well in excess of that when you consider how much house prices have increased over the last 10 years or so. And at the same time, only the top 10 or 20% of people in society now can afford a home, to buy a home, because the correlation, for instance, between the median wage and buying a home is absolutely at record levels. Median house prices across the state now are €360,000. As we can see here in Dublin, it's well in excess of that, because you see areas like Dún Laoghaire, I think it's about 200 or €670,000, and at the same time you've seen counties like Leitrim, I think about €180,000, which brings the median price at about 360 at the moment. But of course the asking prices of these homes and the prices they're sold for is quite different to a massive extent. We've seen in the last day as well, the European Central Bank have come in with an interest rate reduction again, which opened the door to more investor funds to come in and buy more properties and to force prices up in Ireland as well. And this has a domino effect in terms of displacing people from their communities. And what's also very important with this is that Micheál Martin has been talking over the last few days and last few weeks in terms of loosening private investment, or loosening the restrictions and regulations to get more private investment in, because last year they always talk about supply. There was 30,000 homes completed in Ireland. But let's go through a little bit about the supply they talk about, because what's important with this is that we've seen people buy into this housing frenzy, and at the same time the organisations such as the Central Bank, the ERSI, state at the moment is up to nearly 270,000 housing shortfall in our society. And we've seen with the immigration as well, putting pressure on prices and accommodation as well, because of the increase in population we've seen, for instance, over the same period. And it's interesting because the property prices have gone up over 20% above the pre-crash levels, and at the same time the Irish population has grown about 20% during that period as well. Now, what's also important to note is that a lot of reports are saying that we need about 52,000 homes a year. The Central Bank has said at least a year, up to 2050, because of the increase in population. And at the same time, we've seen housing costs, or housing completions and purchases rather, in February. The figures came out from the CSO to say there was 3,245 purchases in February. Now 600 were new dwellings, which is about 18% of the stock. So 2,645 were houses being sold on, and 1,195 of those were to first-time buyers. Now this is important because we've seen about 2/3 of them are to investors, and of course within those first-time buyers we see a lot of non-EU nationals buying houses as well, which is forcing pressures again on people and Irish citizens from getting a home to call their own. We've seen the Help to Buy scheme inflate prices. We've seen the pressure, for instance, with mortgage rules being relaxed, forcing more people into debt. And again, the bankers always profit from this. The ones who are bailed out, the ones who were sold out to people essentially at the behest of the Irish government, are the ones now fundamentally who are profiting from the crisis. And now the government are talking about removing the cap on massive increases to bankers' salaries as well. And it was also really important with this in the last while has been the Irish population in terms of the immigration numbers going on, putting pressure on the services and putting pressure on house prices across the state, which is again causing carnage, not to mention higher rents for ordinary people as well. But investors are the ones that benefit from this, cash-rich investors, investors that are pricing people out of the market in terms of buying a home as well. And as I've said, the difference between the median wage and the median house price has gone out of control. Back in the 80s, I think it was about 2 times, or 1.5 to 2 times your salary or the median wage in terms of buying a home at the median level. Now at the same time in Ireland, it's up to 8 or 9 or probably 10 or 11 times the median wage in terms of buying a house. Across Dublin, it would be at least 14 or 15 times the median wage to get a home. But again, if you laden yourself down with debt, who benefits from this? The big bankers, again, who will have more people, for instance, paying more back for longer. And really, how you deal with this disaster is important, because we've seen a stopping of building of public housing, which essentially was part of the Troika bailout, which was part of the bank bailout well over a decade and a half ago, in terms of opening the door to vulture funds and investor funds as well. Fundamentally, any home that's built in the state should be it should be a social good across society, and how you get to that is the public housing in terms of offering public homes for people. And in terms of a tenant purchase scheme, stopping the tenant purchase scheme of the sell-off of our public homes. Many of those public homes now are in the hands of private investors, and at the same time the government now are paying over a couple of billion a year in housing assistance payment to provide homes for people on ex-public houses, which is absolutely just economic lunacy. And at the same time, this is the government that says they're economic prudent, but this is how they prop up the private market, and that should be ended in terms of the tenant purchase scheme. And as well, there should be a ban on funds buying homes, and ban on non-EU nationals and non-Irish nationals as well from buying homes, to make homes more affordable for people in Ireland. But fundamentally it comes down to the European Union as well, because we've seen the policy of the state essentially being decided by the European Union, and that includes the monetary and the fiscal policy. Now, this is important in terms of setting interest rates as well. Well, you have your own domestic economy, domestic sovereignty, and domestic currency. You can control, for instance, the interest rates, and you can decide over the monetary and fiscal policy of the state. And you could help develop an economy that serves the people. You could have public homes for people. You could have a home to see it as a social good, rather than an avenue to make massive profits, such as through investor funds, vulture funds, and now you have cash-rich individuals that own a lot of property. So it really accelerates inequality in society through property. And again, it's a non-productive asset. So is it because it doesn't produce anything? It's really quite parasitic in nature when you consider people should be investing, or investors should be investing in small businesses that provide employment and create jobs in the local economy. And that should be incumbent on the government to drive those policies. But of course, we have a government that are more interested in driving the policies of globalisation, driving a divide in society between the haves and have-nots, and forcing more people into long-term rented accommodation, for instance, which is completely unaffordable. But rather than having a public home that's built through the state, through public money. But again, everything is about facilitating and propping up the private market. So again, just analysis and a few solutions towards the housing disaster. We see so much vacancy, dereliction, Airbnbs that should be tackled. Renters should have long-term security as well. Real solutions that will help solve our housing disaster, because Ireland deserves so much better than what we're going through. We know we're getting is these top-down policies that are facilitating the very wealthy and avoiding a deepening inequality in Irish society that will create major social issues because of all the catastrophes that we're facing day to day, accelerated by the policies of the Irish political classes, who are fully behind the European Union neoliberal agenda as well. So thanks a lot for the support of my videos, really appreciate them, and please press subscribe, like and share them as well. So from Dublin tonight, Slán, take care, bye bye.